Okay. Josh, you're in Panama, mate.
Yes.
Jeepers. I mean, we really didn't get to sit down and talk to you much about your epic qualification voyage from America. No, you weren't Cape Canaveral, were you? No, you were.
No,
No, you were further
I
north.
came
Yeah.
further north. Yeah.
Down
Yep.
to Antigua, which was an epic in itself. And then you qualified. You had not long, 3-4 days to get ready to go, and now you've just knocked off leg 1 of the MGR. How do you feel about all that? Like here and now.
It's surreal still. Like I have to keep checking myself and telling myself that I'm actually here. Obviously it took so long, to get to that point, to think like, wow, I've actually done it. Like I've actually made the start line and I've actually completed leg 1. That was not something that it's every step of the way. It's a little bit in doubt, if we're going to be able to carry on and make it to the next stop. So yeah, it feels really good, honestly. Yeah.
Okay, so we've sort of known each other for quite a few years, online while you're building your boat and this, that, and the other. But I got to tell you, about a year before the start, I think it was, I used to shake my head a bit and think, nah, you wouldn't get ready, you wouldn't make it in time. And even 6 months before, I think, nah, it's just getting too hard, So you really blew me away. That from the moment, even when you did the drive across America. I was thinking, you still got so much stuff to get and this, that, and the other. Then bugger me, after you do the voyage, you turn up in Antigua and you completely blew me away because you were so well organised. You really tick boxes. You understand self-discipline. You know checklists, this, that, and the other. So that was a bit of a brief intro. I want to send you back because you've got a great story with your mountain climbing thing, right? Just tell us about your climbing history because I know that's where it comes from.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just the spirit of adventure, basically the way that it worked for me was we started. I broke up with my girlfriend, and I was looking for some outlet, some kind of something to make the physical pain match the emotional pain, that kind of thing. And my friend was like, "Oh, come with us on this hike," and we hiked to this the top of this mountain called Three Fingers, which is outside of Seattle there, and there's a fire lookout at the top where they had blown off the top 1,500 feet of rock and put a fire lookout up there, and it's a bit of a little scramble to get up there and stuff like that. And we were, I think, walking for 15, 16 hours straight or something like that. And I thought when I got back, I was just so completely knackered. I was like, oh, I just love this, the mental and physical endurance and everything about it, So I got into it fully. I bought a set of crampons, I bought an ice axe, and I bought a helmet and stuff, and we started doing smaller peaks, around the area there. And we would climb something that wasn't technical, but it had a view of all the surrounding peaks. And what about that one over there? Well, you got to know how to rock climb. So I learned how to do that. I was like, well, what about that one over there? Well, you got to know how to ice climb. So I learned how to do that. And then the way that I would do it is I would act as if, I would go up to the ski hill, the local ski resort, and we would just go up on some random snow slope and pretend like we were on Denali, and I would think in my mind, like, if I was on Denali, what would I be doing right now? How would I be handling myself? And combine that with just, I would always try to do what the people that I admired do. I would pick somebody who I admired, and whatever they did, I would just do that, or my best as close proximity, facsimile as I could. And so that was kind of how I built my way up, to bigger and better things. We would always try something a little harder, and I was always inspired by the historical aspect. There's a famous book called 50 Classic Climbs in North America, and they're well known, and they're not necessarily popular because a lot of them are difficult, but I always liked, the story of the first ascent of the Eiger, and the early days of climbing in the Himalayas and stuff like that, and how those guys, they just had wool jackets and hemp ropes and none of this modern stuff that we have now, and they got it done. So that always really inspired me to think that you can do more with less.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need all that stuff.
Yeah.
To get you there. And so eventually, I had done so much climbing, and I feel like I had peaked. There was a point when there was Cerro Torre in Patagonia. I had read a book by a guy named Greg Crouch, and he described, his book was called Enduring Patagonia. And I always wanted to go to Patagonia because in the book he talked about how it's just the absolute world's worst weather, and they just get destroyed. And I always wanted to go down there and see if I could
get destroyed
and see if I had what it took to endure Patagonia. And in fact, we did go down there, and we did end up getting destroyed, but we did end up being the only team to summit the mountain that year and that sort of thing. So it was emotionally, that was a bit of a peak for me. after that, you know, I went on to do Denali, and I did a number of really difficult climbs in the Cascades and stuff like that. But I always felt like I was kind of going through the motions, you know, like I would go and do these things, but it was things that I had that the momentum was carrying me.
Yeah,
you know, I had peaked, but I could feel I was on the downhill side. And the momentum carried me through these you know, further trips and stuff like that. But I didn't feel like my heart was in it as much.
Yeah.
You know, I would have a bunch of anxiety. I would have a hard time getting out of the tent in the morning and stuff like that. Or I'd have a hard time going to bed the night before because I knew I'd have to get up the next morning and do it. You know. And so I had always had a dream of sailing down the West Coast for some reason from Seattle to Catalina Island. And then once I learned more about that, I realized that's not really a desirable trip to make, you know. And I've always been inspired by the sailors that rounded the Horn and you know, Josh Slocum and stuff like that. And I read Trek Around the World, obviously, and I thought, well, hell, you know, maybe I could sail around. And so I bought a sailboat and taught myself how to sail it. You know, I looked at how much sailing lessons were, and I thought, well, for that price, I can just buy a sailboat and teach myself, you know. And so that was what I did. And then,
what was that boat?
It was a CNC 24.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Cuthbertson and Cassian. It's made from the Great Lakes, a Great Lakes boat. But they're snappy little boats, you know, and it's almost like this in the way that it's kind of a little big boat. For 24 feet, it feels like a lot more boat than it really is, you know, so you kind of get the hang of the feel of it and stuff. And so I sailed that all over as much as I could. And yeah, I always kind of knew that I wanted to circumnavigate. And I had, I guess, subconsciously in the back of my mind, I was always fascinated with people that built their own boats. You know, that was not something I ever thought I could do for myself until you know, I was riding the bus to work one day, and I heard your interview on the Sail Magazine podcast, and you talked about the Mini Globe race and these people that are going to build these 19-foot boats themselves out of plywood and race them around the world. And I thought, hell, I think I can do that, you know. And then what it was that really sold it for me was I watched your video, the first sail, Trekka's first sail, on YouTube, where you and Jane took it out, and you just had all these footage of it going upwind and downwind and stuff like that. And I was absolutely, the hook was set at that point. Like, that was it. You had me. So
yeah, we were testing the sails. That was my only testing the sail design. It was the only time I'd sailed it before I took off across the Atlantic.
I thought that boat looks like a blast.
Yeah,
you know, it looks like it's really fun to sail, and it looks like you can do just about anything. And so that was the catalyst for me.
So you're professionally, like, you're in the boat detailing market. You know,
no, I was a marine technician.
Marine technician.
Yeah. So we worked with detailers, but I didn't do any detailing. I did everything from the keel to the roof.
Yeah.
You know, I painted them, painted bottoms. Yeah. I ran a 100-ton lift. It wasn't a travel lift. It was an elevator. So we would set the blocking plan, and we would lower the elevator in. We would bring the boats in and then lift them out. And so it was for 2 years I ran the lift. And basically, if we had a boat that came in that didn't have a blocking plan for it, I would use a GoPro on a stick, and I would take a video of the hull. Yeah. And I would do my best black magic interpretation of what the blocks were going to have to look like.
You ever drop any?
No, we never dropped one. They broke one, but it was after I left.
Okay.
No, I never dropped one. I was really thorough about it.
Okay. Well, the detail shows in the build as well. We haven't done you a boat tour yet, but we will. It's a brilliant boat. You know, it's one of the glamours. You know, the finish is fantastic, but the structure is awesome. You know, everything about it, electrical and stuff. It's quite amazing.
Right.
So then you set off. From America, heading south towards Antigua, and a couple of days in, you know, I was following your posts and stuff, and it was looking a bit depressing. You know, you were thinking, holy dooly, you know, what's going on, funny noises and so on.
Yeah, the rudder was making a clunking sound, you know, it sounded like it was loose, and I was worried that the bolt on the bottom was going to wear itself out. And then also the wind vane, you know, it had bolts that kept coming loose and stuff like that, and I was thinking, oh man, like at this point I'm still close enough to where I could turn back and make it back safely, you know. Yeah. And I was thinking going back to Florida, because at that point the wind had turned out of the northeast, so there was no way I was getting back across the Gulf Stream the way I came. And it was Kathy, my partner, that actually talked me through it. She was basically like, what happened was one night the wind shifted and it came out of the southeast, and I was trying to go southeast, and all I could do, I could go any other point of the compass but southeast. You know, I was trying to steer 150, and I just absolutely could not steer 150. I could steer, like, you know, 60 or something like that, and then like 190, 200 the other way, you know. And so I just tacked back and forth, and I basically felt like I was sailing it back and forth in front of a wall.
Yeah, well,
you
were.
A wall here, and I'm just going back and forth in front of it, and I can't make any more progress. And I said, stuff it, you know. And I had actually turned around. Yeah. And I was actually heading back, and then I talked to her on the phone, and she was just like, look, man, it's the wind. It blows all
Absolutely.
over.
Absolutely.
Like, wait till tomorrow and it'll be different.
She's a wise lady. She's a wise lady. I remember when all that was happening, I'm saying to James, we're going to go to Florida. I'm thinking, oh, no, it's just too early. There's too much at stake.
Right.
Keep going, keep going. And you did.
She convinced me that just give it one more day and give the wind a chance to change and do something else,
Good on her.
And it did, by the time the next day was fine, and so I made my way a little bit further along, and then I got to another point where I couldn't go southeast anymore, and then I had kind of got sucked into tunnel vision because I had routed myself on the chart plotter. I had drawn the line on the chart plotter, and so I was like, I'm going to follow that line as closely as I can. Yeah. And I had just convinced myself that was the one and only way to do it. And I was following. What was really psyching me out was the weather models. Everything was kind of saying that I wasn't going to arrive before like the 23rd or something like that. And I was like, hell, I'll never make it. By the time, because she was only.
That's because you're going so slow with VMG. That was all.
Exactly. And so what I did was I just like changed my route, and then I remapped it, and then it just said go south for 2 days and you'll get better wind. Yeah. And so I was like, oh hell. So that was what I did. I just turned south, went south for 2 days, and after that it all kind of fell into place. Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah. So it was the need I needed to hear, just give it one more day, basically.
Absolutely.
It's the wind and it'll change, and it's not none of that is set in stone,
So now you must look back at that. Now you know the boat so well and you've sailed so much of it. You must look back at that and say, well, that was part of the course because you didn't know the boat.
Yep.
But you do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do now.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you just did the first leg of the MGR. It was a bit of a blast, super fast again. I mean, the weather was perfect for that.
Yep.
But there was wind against tides and big seas and all this sort of stuff. Can you sort of verbalise your experience?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I mean, everything was fine. I was learning to sail the boat downwind. I had never used the asymmetric spinnakers. I had never used the poles, and I'd certainly never done that stuff alone. So I sailed very conservatively. I did a lot of like just jib and main. Just to try to get the boat to steer itself and stuff like that. And then I would, because I don't have furlers for my spinnakers, so I got to launch them all by hand, And eventually I figured out how to do that. I'd launch them out of the hatch, stuff the sail down in the hatch and connect all the lines and then pull it up. I got the sets down really good. And then eventually I figured out how to take it down into the cockpit, And so what I would do is I would take them down into the cockpit at night. And I would just strap it down in the cockpit right there. And then the next morning I would just launch it right out of the cockpit. No fuss, no muss. And so... just figuring out the systems, working out the systems, because that's what it was in climbing the same way. It's all about your systems and your confidence in them and your ability to use them. So how quickly can you make the transitions, like when you're climbing and it's time for you to go? How quickly can you break down the anchor and everything like that? And that just comes with time and practice and that sort of thing. So I started out doing like 100 miles a day, and then I got to like 110, 115. I think my best was 120 or something like that. So definitely gaining confidence and skill, and. Obviously, everybody got beat up around Barranquilla, but apparently that's notorious
part of the
for
course.
that. Yeah, for sure.
So what was your experience there?
So, I mean, honestly, I was almost on a beam reach, So for me, it felt so familiar because coming upwind in the Atlantic, like, oh man, we had big wind and we were getting beat up, and so for me, I was like, oh, this is just like it was before. So it felt very familiar. I was totally fine with it. I didn't swamp the cockpit or anything like that. Or round up or anything crazy. So I felt like we handled it really well. Yeah,
that's cool. So you've got, the other thing that strikes me about the boat down below is that it's really, everything's got its place and everything's in its place, all the rest of it. So how do you find living on board?
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never, everybody, you get these people on these big yachts and stuff and they're like, you are crazy, I don't know how you do it. And, I always just tell them it's not about what you need, it's about what you don't need.
Absolutely.
And I never feel claustrophobic down there. It's totally cozy. It's like my little cocoon, I go down there and I always feel really, really comfortable. I never get cabin fever or feel stir crazy or anything. I think it's everything you need and nothing you don't.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. And like I spent so much of my life getting beat up in a little teeny tiny tent that like that's like, and then for 2 years building the boat, I lived in my van. Yeah. And it was considerably smaller than that. So moving into the 580 was an upgrade for me. So I can actually stretch my legs out. The bed is long enough for me to lay down. So it's all right.
That's perfect. So there's obviously nothing you're going to change about the boat.
No, I wouldn't. I love it.
Yeah.
It's exactly the way I want it.
Yeah. So have you mastered the wind vane? Do you think?
I think so, yeah. And I got a lot of good advice from my colleagues, the other guys that have them. Adam helped me tune it up a little bit. And I mean, my whole thing was like, I know if I reduce sail, then it'll be able to steer, but I'll slow down. But if I don't reduce sail and it's going all over the place, then I slow down. So it's like, it's a debate of whether or not it's like faster to go straight or if it's faster to go faster, you know.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of that too, and so yeah, just and I was pretty relaxed, you
Yep.
know. I would get the wind vane going, and then I would like read a book or like play the ukulele or something like that. So I think if I actually want to go faster, I'm gonna have to steer a bit more, you know, and actually push the boat a little bit. I didn't push myself too hard.
Yep.
So
Yep. That's cool.
Like I was talking to John, Delja 99, and or 100, and he was just saying like, don't worry about beating anybody else, just worry about beating yourself, you know.
Yeah,
like you're racing against yourself.
That's what it is.
You know,
yeah.
you're not racing these other guys, because you know these other guys have 40 years ocean racing experience and that sort of thing. He's like, just try to race against yourself. And I was like, well, myself from this first leg will be easy to beat, because he was really lazy.
Yep, for sure.
So,
No, I know what you mean. That's exactly right. Anytime you're in a single-handed race, it's the best way to look at it.
Right.
You just race against yourself and let others make mistakes. You know, hopefully you don't make any.
The only racing I've done is on the Puget Sound. That's buoy can racing like that.
Yeah.
And you can see the other boat, you know, and so you say, okay, well, this is what I got to do to catch them or whatever, and you can look at their sail plan and see what they're doing, and you can kind of try to imitate that, but like without being able to see anybody else,
Yeah.
it makes it a lot harder. You just got to try to go as straight and fast as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what comms are you using? What?
I got all Garmin systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got, everything that's... I have the Iridium Go Executive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and in the Atlantic, it didn't work so good, and I could get a message out every 3 days or something like that, but in the Caribbean, it was great.
Yeah.
We were all chatting and some messages back and forth and stuff like that. I could talk to the folks back home and everything, so...
Good.
Yeah, that worked really well.
That's all right.
See how it goes in the Pacific.
So, food-wise, how are you managing that? Well, it's not quite like climbing. You don't have to worry about weight too much.
That's exactly right.
So what are you eating?
So I eat great. I
Yeah.
cook dinner every night. Yeah.
Every night?
Every night.
What do you cook?
So in all the days I've been at sea, 20 days from America to Antigua, and then 11 days here, I've eaten one dehydrated meal.
Wow, you must love that.
I've used the jet boil. I've used the jet boil one time.
Yeah.
So I do pasta. I got the Origo, the gimbaled alcohol stove.
Yeah.
So I'll cook pasta. I'll cook. Last night we made chow mein with fried spam, so for the first week or two out of port, I'll have fresh vegetables. I'll bring bell peppers and onions and potatoes and garlic and stuff like that. For as long as it'll keep, I'll eat it as fast as I can. And so for breakfast, I'll do like onions and potatoes and garlic and peppers, and I'll fry that in the pot and then put it aside. And then I'll cook. I have these like packets of instant rice.
Yeah.
So they make these little like pre-cooked rice packets. So
Yeah.
I'll put one of those in there, and then I'll put that on a tortilla or something like that. And then for lunch, I'll have like just a can of sardines on like a hamburger bun, a little bit of mustard, something like that, and some crisps. And then for dinner, I'll do like spaghetti or rice. Or
Cheapies,
like
you're going to give Renaud a run for his money.
Yeah.
He can bake cakes, but he might be the top cooker on board, I reckon.
John's he's pretty good too. He does a lot of cooking. He made fresh guacamole one day and something like that. So
Yeah, that's cool.
I think for me, that for morale, it's good. But like that's what I look forward to is like dinner at night. That's my favorite thing. Is like 5:30, 4:30, 5:30. I start thinking about dinner, and so I get down, and I can even like hand steer if I have to, and like I'll go down, I'll put the pasta on to boil, and I'll come back up and steer for a while, and then I'll go back down and I'll pour it in the thing, and I'll cut up the onions and put them in there, and I'll come out and steer for a while, And so I don't necessarily make it all in one go. Sometimes it'll take an hour to make the dinner or whatever. But then I eat it as the sun goes down in the cockpit, and then I'll reduce my sail plan for the night or whatever.
Many would say that's living the dream.
Yeah.
Many would say that, because if you're like me, I hardly even light the stove.
Yeah.
I just eat bloody food as it comes. But anyway.
Yeah, I never thought I would,
Yeah.
Like I was like, I put the stove in here. I was like, that'll be for calm water or in the harbor or something like that. And then come to find out, it actually works really good. So I use it all the time.
Yeah, they're very good. Yeah, that's cool. So no maintenance issues, like how much you're working at sea, to keep everything happening?
Yeah, I mean, everything works great. I had no problems.
Yeah.
Like my wind vane, the wind vane tried to come apart on me in the middle of the night one night. Like
that's exciting.
Where the drive, the
Conrod.
Yeah, the conrod connects to the thread, where it connects to the actual
flip-flop.
The flip-flop vane, and so I had to stop the boat and put it all back together, I thought it was coming apart, and then I realized, all I have to do is screw this thing in and tighten these two nuts, and I had already taken half of the stuff apart, and so I put it all back together, but it was fine.
Yeah.
But beyond that, no, I had no issues at all. Everything worked great, just as designed, as intended. So
the next one's a big one. That was really fast. The speeds that everyone was getting from Antigua to here was pretty quick. There's a big question mark on the next one. It could be 40 days, 50 days, even 60 days. It's hard to say, but it's going to be a long one. How much water are you going to take? How are you planning that?
So I'll probably take 50 days.
Yeah.
50 days worth, because I think I can do it in 40.
How many liters a day do you do?
2.
2.
Yeah, and then it depends on if I cook pasta.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it might be 2.5.
Yeah.
You know, but I drink 2 liters a day.
Yeah.
You know, and that was always what I did in the mountains and stuff too. So
okay.
I'm pretty religious about it. You know, I always make sure to drink and always stay hydrated. So yeah, coming from North Carolina to Antigua, I had 94 liters. I had four 6-gallon jugs full, and I used 2 of them. So that was 20 days.
Yeah.
So I figured, and I had no strict discipline or anything like that. You know, so I figured with a little bit of discipline and if I had to, I could flip the boom cover over and maybe catch some rainwater if it came to that. You know, so there's some plans for that as well.
So did you find anything along the lines of you felt as if you weren't getting enough exercise or not able to stretch or really?
No.
Just live it as it comes.
Yeah, exactly. Just take it as it comes. I mean, I've been so fit. I have just residual fitness basically from having been so fit before. And yeah, there would be days when I would just stand up and I would put the tiller between the cockpit and I would do a little bit of, stretch my shoulders, arms and shoulders and back and stuff, because I feel like you're just hunched over all the time.
Yep.
But beyond that, no, I never felt like I was getting weak or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything. I always felt pretty strong. There was never a time when I was too weak to go out and make a sail change or something like that.
Yeah. So what about entertainment or leisure time? Music or books, or what do you do?
Yeah, I got books on Kindle.
Yeah.
And I got books on audiobooks as well. So that I listen to, and then I got the only 2 paperback books I bought was The Long Way, Montessier.
Oh, yeah.
And another one called Unbroken, which is about a guy who he was a World War II bomber, and they got shot down in the Pacific, and they spent 30-40 days in the life raft or something like that.
Jeepers.
And then they ended up getting picked up by the Japanese Navy and taken to an internment camp. And so when you're finally rescued, you're actually going straight to prison. So it's actually a pretty wild story.
Did they survive in the end?
Yeah, they did.
They survived the war.
They did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they kept trying to do all this crazy
mental
torture and degradation on him because they wanted him to spill secrets, and he never broke. That's why the book's called Unbroken.
Yeah. Okay.
It's pretty good. But yeah, so yeah, I got paperbacks and I watched what I call the chart plotter show.
Yeah.
I obsess over the numbers, and compass heading and speed and all that, and how closely I'm following the line and stuff. I'll lay there and watch that for a couple hours,
So you're doing any routing plans before you leave? Work out a bit of a game plan on what you think the weather's going to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to pull out my paper charts, and I've got the Jimmy Cornell cruising guide. He's got some good insight in there about how to time the currents and stuff like that. And so, my main goal is going to be to try my best to find the shortest route across the doldrums. Yeah. Yeah, obviously that's the secret there.
Yeah. Are you getting good weather reports? Are you getting good gribs on the exact?
Yeah. That's been no problem at all. So I mean, whether or not how accurate they are, it'll say it's doing one thing. It'll say, for example, coming in here that it's going to be, 15 to 16, something like that, and it's 3 to 8. And I'm like, where is this 16 knots it showed?
Because you sat becalmed just about coming in the last couple of days, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone was going great guns, and all of a sudden you guys stopped.
Yep. And so I was just kind of following the fleet because I was towards the back, and everybody just went straight across, because I knew what the current swirled right there, and it was kind of better to go up and over and then come down if you wanted to not have to go against that current right off the shore there. Yeah. And everybody else just blasted straight across, and I was blasting straight across, and so I'm like, all right, cool. And then the wind dies, and all of a sudden now the current's a big problem, and I should have gone the other way. So, live and learn. But not much you can do about it at that point.
That's cool. So, and what about personal hygiene? How do you manage that? As in having a wash and all that sort of stuff?
Same as we did on the glacier. I just do a baby wipe bath.
Yeah.
Wet ones bath is what we call that. Yeah. And every few days or so,
Yep.
But I don't feel. It's funny. I'll wipe my face off.
Yep.
And I'll expect it to be dirty, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's no dirt.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. So have you got a big stack of Sudocreme ready for the next leg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nappy rash cream. Yeah. It's
exactly.
the godsend,
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Anyway, that's cool.
That's what I found. When my shorts are so wet with salt water all the time. You get sore from sitting on them.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest problem I had with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All very good. Okay, so and navigation-wise, you've obviously got the chart plotter. Where were you at with your sextant stuff? I forget.
Oh, I'm
we
good.
passed that
Yeah,
before.
I'm
Yeah,
good.
that's right. Yeah, you did. So,
I can do all that stuff.
yeah,
I can
so
do running fix and
so
everything else.
did you do any of it for fun? Probably not yet because you're too busy.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
yet. I was just so focused on just trying to learn the systems and stuff
Yeah.
like this. But yeah, it's always I enjoy it.
Yeah.
For me, it's a touch thing. It's the actual taking of the sites that I find really satisfying. Because the finer you
Get a good
touch,
one.
the finer you touch, the better it is.
Yep, too true.
So yeah.
But yeah, I forget, when you've already brought it up, that it was a huge learning curve for you because you didn't have any downwind. It was a bit like Eric. Eric was even worse, on Sunbear. Jeepers. He had horrific headwinds all the way into Antigua.
Yep.
And he was the same. He'd never set a kite before on the boat and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, that's cool. All right, I think that's anything you want to, what are you missing the most? Is there anything that you're missing, in the whole deal?
Oh, obviously I miss my partner, because I lived in Seattle and she lived in California while I was building the boat, so we haven't actually been together. We're going to see each other more in the next year, every 3 months or so, 4 months than we had previously before that. So yeah, obviously a little bit of homesickness, but I have no plans to go back to Seattle or anything like that, so it's not like I have any roots put down.
Yeah, is she coming to Fiji?
Yeah,
cool.
Fiji,
Yeah, quite a big deal there. Anyway,
yeah,
that's cool. And so, okay, so you're now, leg one's done. We're in Panama. We're going across the other side, and we're entering the Pacific for the first time. Probably because you live on the Pacific side doesn't mean a lot, but
it actually does.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel?
I feel great. I can't wait.
Yeah.
The Pacific is a whole different ocean.
Yeah.
And I had only sailed in the Pacific before going to the Atlantic and now the Caribbean, and I kind of just thought that once you got offshore that a lot of them were pretty much the same, but the Pacific is a completely different ocean.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely love it. To me, it feels like home waters.
Yeah.
Like I'm going back to the home field advantage or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
The electric blue, that color of it, and
Yeah.
it's just that it's I love it. I can't wait to get back.
Yeah,
that's what I've been thinking about this whole time. Like I can't wait to get back to the Pacific.
It is a pretty cool route. I mean, this is the dream route. To a degree.
Right.
Anything can happen, and it's never easy. But it's quite a track. So obviously Marquise is next, and then 5.8m. Anything that's popping in your brain? Anything you're really looking forward to?
Oh yeah, obviously I've always wanted to cruise the South Pacific. That's just like you said, the dream. When you read about all these, like the Mutiny on the Bounty and stuff like that, and you just see these white sand beaches and these crystal clear blue waters and coconut trees and everything like that, and just little atolls where the the palm trees are the tallest things on there, and just. It's all very romantic in my mind, and that is very appealing to me.
Yeah, you're going to go right past Tafua, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is the site of the Mutiny on the Bounty.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's like a second home for us.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Yeah, there's stories are just starting, I suppose, but it's all very exciting. So personally, how do you feel when you take a step sideways or step back when you look at your boat sitting on the marina there and you realise you're in Panama? Does it ever sort of hit you sometimes? Hey, shit, it's happening.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. I always and it's really exciting, because of how long it took to get here. To think that I actually made it. Yeah. Is pretty important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it delivering what you ever expected?
Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And that is. For me, the umbrella that everything else about the MGR and the 580 and everything falls under is the community aspect, the family. Even though it's a competition, how we're all helping each other out. I'm helping these guys with their electrics today, so they're getting their stuff sorted, and I gave Dan a length of wire that I had that was a spare, but I was like, it's all right, you can go ahead and use it. And so the way that we all kind of take care of each other, how we're all kind of competing against one another. There's obviously people that really want to win, but then most of us just want to see everybody get around, and it's almost as if. Like for me, being at sea is what appeals to me. I like to be at sea. I like to be in my little 7-mile circle, and I like to see nothing but wind and waves as far as the eye can see. And then when it comes to getting back to land, I'm like, it's a little bit grating almost, But to be able to be with this group and to be able to hang out with everybody once we get back, that's like a huge appeal. I love the family aspect of it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
The way that we're all...
It's pretty cool. It's quite extraordinary.
Right.
More so than any other event we've ever had.
15 strangers that are now friends for life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
No, absolutely. All right, I think that's it. Anything else you want to say to any of your followers and people that are, keen to keep up with what you're doing?
No, I mean, just thank you for your support. Obviously, I really appreciate it. All the comments and messages and everything that I get keep me going. To allow to know. I mean, ultimately we're here to share the story. I feel like I could have named the little boat Vicariously, you know, because everybody wants to live vicariously through me, you know, which is fine. That's the idea, you know. You guys can come along for the ride and hopefully get an idea of what doing something like this is actually like. And that's being able to share it is, I feel, very special for me.
Cool. All right. Thanks, mate. That's fantastic. So let's see what happens in the next few days.
Okay. Yeah. Let me know
come and do the
if you want
boat
to
tour.
do a
Yeah,
tour.
we'll do
I'll get it straightened up. It's not. It's not like it's very messy, but you know, I'll straighten up.
It's never messy.
Straighten up.
Your boat is always looking very slick.
I know. I was glad. So basically, I've been doing my best. That anytime I see people stop and look, I'll go over there and press the flesh a little bit. You know. Yeah. Try to get them. You know, get them involved.
You got prime position.
Yeah.
You got absolute prime position.
It's like a billboard. So
yeah, exactly.
Everybody's been really. There's been a lot of interest. I mean, we've generated a lot of interest just from having the boat right there. Because everybody was talking about moving it over here or anything, but I was like, honestly, I think it's good to just leave it there because it sells it to people. You know.
Yep. Absolutely.
So all the time, I'll see people walking up and I'll be like, what do you think? It's crazy, right? You know, and they're like, this is your boat, and we get to talk about it. Or people up at the restaurant will call me over to them and I'll tell them all about it. So we generated a lot of interest in the event just from having a little boat park right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
Yep. Yeah, you're all crazy. Anyway, enough of that. All right, thanks, mate.
Yeah.
See you later.
All right,
cool.
sounds good.